I'm back from the Spa 24. Back from Mid-Ohio this past weekend. Also back from the UK is Robb Holland, our American racing British touring car this month. Thank you for being on ShakeDown.
Thanks for having me.
You know, we're going to have more on Drive about Spa, and I'm going to do a Friday episode about IndyCar and GT rules, the new things coming. Let's talk to you about British touring car and your plans.
Great.
You've seen Zach Galifianakis in Between the Ferns?
Yeah.
Can we call this show Between the Berms?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do it that way then, okay? Let's start with an important question. The English use the metric system. The Americans use the English system. A meter is 1.1 yards. Aren't you going to be slower in England? Okay, next question. You've said that British touring car is bigger than Jesus and the Olympics. What gives you the right to say that?
I didn't say that.
You've called yourself the Michael Phelps of British touring car. Have you the right?
Why am I talking racing with the guy from American Pie?
Those were things that
call my
you
agent.
said. What? Rob, thank you for putting up with my bad sense of humor. You know the commenters will all attack me. Thank you for going along with that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's catch everyone up to speed. We talked to you before on an earlier shakedown.
Yep.
You went off to Snetterton to test, which is
did.
going to be your first race. And now we bumped into each other in Mid-Ohio.
In the rain again.
Yeah, bad. But thank you for coming in. And let's talk a little and catch everyone up on what's happened
Cool.
and what's going to happen next with the races. Let's start a little bit basically. Explain to the audience, what is British Touring Car, the Dunlop MSA British Touring Car Championship? What is it?
Well, it's the oldest touring car series in the world, and obviously I think one of the most prestigious. If you look back over the years, the series started in 1965 and has been going pretty much continuously ever since. And it is basically a series of production-based sedans. Currently the rules specify a 2-liter turbo motor. Cars put up around 300 horsepower, 325 horsepower, but they're full-blown race cars underneath. I mean, they're small GT cars. It's fully sequential gearboxes, Penske suspensions. They're just absolute monsters.
So you've raced World Challenge a lot. Mm-hmm. You cut your teeth at. Matter of fact, you even got in a car at Mid-Ohio.
I did.
And it was going great up until the tire degradation, but I digress. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between this car, the BTCC car, and the Challenge car. It's more of a race car, as you said.
Yeah. The World Challenge cars are great, but they're production-based cars, and they stay very true to their production roots. There's not a lot of modifications. There's some basic suspension upgrades, so shocks, springs, sway bars. There's some modifications to the braking system, and that's more of a safety thing. Obviously, production brakes will
in World Challenge.
In World Challenge, yes. But they do use the Pirelli slicks in World Challenge. Going over to the BTCC, the cars are basically bespoke cars. They take the original chassis of a production-based car, and it is completely torn out. There are custom subframe, custom suspension pickup points. The shocks are rod actuated. They've got dynamic rear toe. I mean, it's the amount of things that these cars can do. So it's literally like comparing a street car to a car at Le Mans.
And you can stiffen up a production car, but the race car you're talking about is a much more stable platform.
Oh, incredibly stable.
Yeah.
I mean, they spend so much time getting the suspension just right, because obviously a lot of these cars are front-wheel drive cars, and touring car in general has always really, for the most part, meant a front-wheel drive car. And there's a lot of things that front-wheel drive cars struggle with when you talk about putting them in a race application. And these teams spend millions and millions of dollars engineering all of the front-wheel drive, antics out of those cars. So
now you're racing a Honda Civic.
Yep.
But you're going up against Toyota Avensis, BMW 3 Series,
Yep.
Plato in the MG6.
MG6. Yeah.
Ford Focus.
Yeah.
Proton has a car. Audi A4. Vauxhall. Both a Vectra and an Insignia?
Yes.
Am I getting it right so
You've
far?
pretty much got it
Yeah, I
all.
did the math. And a VW Golf.
Yes.
So, but there's two different categories. There's the NGTC, the new generation touring car, and this is S2000-spec you're racing.
Yes.
But they both got the same engine, you told me?
Yeah, they both use, the series overall uses a 2-liter engine. It's a spec 2-liter engine. The engines can be from the particular manufacturer, but they have to be a 2-liter turbo. And what they've done is they've done just, the series itself have done extensive amounts of engineering to understand the capabilities of all the engines. Because, you know, as you know, when you get into trying to match different cars, each one has a different performance parameter. So it's very, very difficult for a series to create cars that are somewhat equal. Which obviously creates the best racing. So what the British Touring Car has done, the TOCA, they've gone in, measured all the engines, and then they do an adjustment based on lap times. Cars obviously have different chassis, have different performance abilities, whether it's cornering or whatever. And so what they can do is a car that maybe struggles a bit in the corner has a little bit more of a straight line advantage. So they used lap times to balance that out, and they changed the boost.
So the last race was Croft, and the Honda Civics are kind of dominating. Now, you're going to be in a S2000-spec Honda Civic.
Yeah.
But that kind of raises the expectations. Everyone around this program are on your side, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing is I've got Honda on my side. HPD in the U.S. has
cool.
kind of really backed me on this one. Lee Neffenegger and those guys have been they've been awesome. And in fact, they were part of the genesis of a lot of this happening. We had talked to JAS about their World Touring Car program as well. So, yeah, Lee's been a big backer. HPD has been fantastic. And then I've also got Oakley, which I've been with for years, and they're the best guys in the world. And then my good guys over at Optima Batteries, who I've known through World Challenge, but we've done some other stuff, and they're also working with me on this too. So yeah, totally, I've got a lot of support. So yeah, there'll be more than a few expectations.
Okay, so you're racing the next two races, Snetterton and KnockHill, August 12th weekend, and then August 26th.
Correct.
So let's get right to it, because you went to the test at Snetterton.
Yeah.
And my understanding is it was, what, raining in England?
Jeez,
in the UK?
In the summer,
Yeah,
surprise.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the test. Maybe if I don't get too deep here, start with, you've never been to the track, you've never been in this car.
No.
So what were your feelings? What were you thinking, sitting in the car getting ready to go out the first time?
Well, it's a little daunting. I mean, to be honest. I mean, it's a different car, a new track, new team, and you know, obviously being an American, the first American in almost 40 years to come into British Touring Car, there was the more than casual curiosity of the British fans. So there were a lot more people out there than I was expecting. You do a test in the U.S. and you know, it's you and your team and you know, the guy who runs the track, and that's about it. There were a few more people than that there. And then obviously in the conditions, the track didn't even go green until almost noon, because they had so much standing water on the track. Because it not only had it been raining that day, but it had been raining for the past 2 months. So it wasn't just a little bit of rain.
So going off was going to be an adventure.
Going off was, and that's the big thing. Is going off isn't really an option. You know, you're starting off with a new team, new series, and all the scrutiny that goes with it. And the last thing you want to do is start off the relationship by stuffing their car into the wall and having the mechanics have to work all night to repair it. So, you know, but you also don't want to be slow, because these guys have now invested in bringing you in. So there is that balance, and as a pro driver, it's just one of those things you kind of have to deal with. And so so it was just more of, in a way it was good because I could use the first couple laps to figure out where the track went. And the other good thing was that it had rained for the entire 2 months prior, so that there was no rain line because all of the rubber had gotten washed away. So you could pretty much run a normal line there and still have a fair amount of grip.
Now, it was kind of an open test, I understand. Were there other British Touring Car teams there, or was it just a mix of?
Originally, there were supposed to be other British Touring Car teams there, but what ended up happening is that in order to keep costs down, the series basically says you're not allowed to test at the tracks that you're going to go to until after you've gone to them.
Okay.
They have made an exception in my case because obviously I have never been to this track before. The one thing I discovered about going over there for the first time is that all of the tracks throughout England are 150 miles from each other.
Yeah, it's all
right. So it's whereas here is like if I go to Road Atlanta is 5-6 hours away. All of these tracks are within a couple of hours. So these guys drive these tracks all the time. So they really have a knowledge of these things. So the series made an exemption for me, so they allowed me to go out and test. There were other Genetic Cup teams there. There were a bunch of 250cc shifter go-kart guys out there, which were absolutely insane.
How do you find them in your mirror? But I digress.
No. We did different times on track. They were there, but yeah, otherwise you wouldn't find out until after you ran them over, or several of them. And then actually the cool thing was that Robb Huff, who is a World Touring Car driver, who has been very successfully competing in the British Touring Car for a number of years, was actually pitted the garage over from us. He was running I believe it was like a '67 Camaro, the old in Sunoco livery.
Oh wow!
It was really
in the UK.
In the UK. In
cool.
the UK. So actually, it was funny because when I went out behind him, and I said, "Well, that's the guy who I'm going to follow for a while." And sure enough, I did. So, but yeah, so there were a few other guys out there.
So take us into the car now. What did it feel like? What were your sensations about driving that Civic BTCC?
It's an amazing car to drive. It's funny, you don't realize spending so much time in World Challenge and in a very stock car, how much better jumping into a fully prepped race car is. It's just precise. You want there's your apex, great, boom, there it goes. It was really a lot of fun, and it was one of those things that 3 corners into it, you were like, I'm so happy. You just got used to this is going to be good. So the car itself is great. It's a sequential gearbox, which is fantastic because it's a right-hand drive car. And that was one of the big worries, is that in a 6-speed, you're sitting there with your left hand going, I don't know which gear is what, and when you're racing, you can't have that moment's hesitation. So, and then my next big fear was that it's a right-hand drive. I've never driven a right-hand drive car on a race course, but it's basically, you need to be here on this particular point in the track, that's where you are, and you don't even think about it. So that really became a non-issue.
So the perspective didn't really affect you?
You know, it didn't, but here's the funny thing is that the one thing I didn't think of is the mirrors, my rear view mirror.
Okay.
When from the time you get into a car,
look
you
left,
you look up. Like that. There are birds in my mirror, and I don't know why. Oh, because my mirror is there. And you know, it's one of those things. I did it every single time. Every time I went to look in the mirror, I looked to the right. So that was the one thing it took to get used to. But the car itself it just comes alive the faster you drive it, the harder you lean on it. And it's one of those things where a stock car, when you start leaning harder, eventually it just gives up.
Right.
And this car was just like, okay, keep going. We're not there yet. And it just feeds you into going faster.
Did you get some dry running time?
We got damp running time.
Damp.
How's that?
Okay.
We had enough.
Were you on dry tires?
We switched over to slicks.
Okay.
It was good because there was a dry line. The only issue was that through some of the faster corners, the line hadn't really developed yet, so it was still slick. And eventually you get to the point, even on a slick, where the tire gives up and the car will start to wash. And the thing is that there's a dry line, not a dry line. So the car starts to wash, and as soon as the slicks touch where it's more damp offline, the car just skates.
Did you get a feeling? Is this car a car you toss aggressively to carry speed, or it's smooth aggression? What works?
I think smooth aggression is going to be like that. I think the car can take whatever you throw at it, and it's going to be set up that's going to really determine how you drive the car, or how the car wants to be driven. The amazing thing about these cars is that they've got a dynamic rear toe, basically. So the toe link itself, link itself is it's almost a shock absorber with preload and everything. And what it does is it creates a rear wheel steer.
Yeah.
So once you get the rear tires hot, and the only way to do that is actually rotate the fronts to the rear, because the rears will not get heat in them otherwise, no matter how hard you lean on them. You'll actually get a rear toe that basically rotates the car through the corner. So once we did that, so we'd gone out and done the running in the wet, but obviously it doesn't really make a difference there because there's not enough friction to get the dynamic rear toe to work. But once we went into the dry, we were able to make some adjustments, and I leaned on it the first time, and it was like, oh, the car rotates. And then you have to, it's a readjustment of all of your lines on the track, because you're now turning in early for everything because the car turns so well. So after doing that, I was able to go out and do, I think, a lap and a half before they had a red flag again because the rain had picked up.
So somehow, I think, if I'm understanding, it takes away the front drive sensation. It just becomes a platform that.
Well, it's almost a better platform than a rear-wheel drive at that point, because it takes away the negative of a front-wheel drive. But the great thing about the front-wheel drive is that the front wheels are pulling you through the corner, so it almost has the advantages of an all-wheel drive.
Are you rooting for rain or dry?
You know, I just spent the whole weekend in the rain at Mid-Ohio. No, I think dry. The problem with racing in the rain, especially with a bunch of guys that you just don't know yet, is that you just don't know who you can trust, and the margins become so much smaller. And you know, we're really looking for a clean race and really kind of just to go in and really get a feel for the series. So I think in the dry, it's going to be a little bit more sane. So
you schooled me on the fact that the S2000 spec has smaller tires than the NGTC.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about how the car corners and handles and does those things and getting temperatures. Are you doing some tire management in an S2000?
Yeah.
Much
Absolutely.
more than the NGTC. How does that affect your race?
Well, in both ways, because like you were saying, the smaller tire, because of the smaller volume, gets heat in it quicker.
Okay.
So actually, at the start of the race, the S2000 cars have a little bit of an advantage in the sense that our tires are going to be up to pressure and temperatures much quicker. So it's one of those things, it's attack at the beginning, but 75% of the way through the race, that balance shifts back over to the NGCC cars with bigger tires that'll have, they really don't have as much tire management. The other big thing is obviously with a front wheel drive car, you're putting power through the front wheels. So you're burning up the tires at a little bit faster rate because you're cornering forces and also the acceleration forces. So there is going to be some management. And the tough part is I probably won't get a race distance session so that I can understand where that balance comes in. So I'm going to probably have to play it a little conservative at the beginning, but that's not really my nature. So we'll have to see.
Is the team, have you already figured out, are we all talkers on the radio, or they just let you do your thing?
No, they've been really good. Dave, my crew chief, used to be one of the crew guys top crew guys for 888.
Okay.
So he's been with the best guys, and he understands what the driver needs. And I'm not a big talker on the radio. Especially with a bunch of new guys, you're really trying to absorb. You're trying to be a sponge right now, and the last thing you want to do is have a 20-minute conversation with your engineer about how the car's feeling in the middle of the race. But we did great as far as debriefs and stuff. We really were kind of on that same page. He understands that there's things that the drivers want that the engineers might not quite get, and that's really important for me.
So the last time you were on here, I kind of got you to pledge to take us through the debrief session.
Right.
I don't want to trade or share secrets, but let's do that a little bit. So you ran a session or two, came in and sat down with Dave, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Talk to us, take us through the debrief. Like, put us in the room with you. How did that progress? What happened? Get out of the car.
Well, first I stopped smiling, so that was the first thing. But then they really want to know what my first sensations are, what my first impressions are, because usually those are the most important. Is the car too loose? How's the braking? How's it? So we sat down and really kind of
very qualitative driver feel things.
Yes.
Okay,
but mainly it's a general feel. Here's my overall impression. But then let's start breaking it down. Okay, turn one. All right, what did turn one do? Was it loose? Where was it loose? If it was loose, was it entry? Was it mid corner? Was it exit? And so we basically walked through corner by corner. One of the things that I mentioned in my initial feedback was I was not getting, I tried to get lockup out of the brakes just to see what the level of grip was because it was wet, and I wasn't able to get lockup. And I kind of was pushing harder and harder and waiting, and they said, no, the way they've sized the master cylinders is the master cylinder is small so that there's a low level of force on the brake, so you can really nail them and not get any lockup. So that basically then changed a whole bunch of things going out for session number 2, because it really allows you to use the brakes a lot more, because I've been driving cars for years with ABS now, because they're stock-based cars.
And there's no ABS on.
There's no ABS. So you're kind of like, okay, where's the lockup?
Did you like it better?
I can't stand ABS. I really can't. ABS doesn't stop you quicker.
I'm right there with you.
Yes, it basically allows you to control the car, but I don't need that. I want the car to do what I want it to do, and ABS doesn't allow that. And even in the rain at Mid-Ohio this weekend, I mean, it's one of those things that my feel is more important than what the computer says. So they haven't gotten that good yet.
Now, when you started this feeling of the car, was there any data being introduced, or was it just listening to you?
Initially, it's just listening. I mean, part of the issue that we had is that because of the rain, we didn't really get on track until late in the day, which was unexpected. And then on top of that, because there were other cars there, they shortened everyone's session. So we were only getting 20-minute sessions. And then on top of that, which was very surprising, is that there were a lot of cars going off. So there we'd get in 5 minutes into a session, red flag. And then that was the session. It wasn't like they said red flag and just give us a minute, we'll go get it. It's red flag and just go back to the pits and wait for your next session. So I think we got 15, 16 laps in pretty much the whole day. So the problem is, and then the conditions were changing throughout the day. And as a lot of places in the UK, the rain stops, but the wind keeps going. So the tracks dry out very quickly. So the conditions, even in a session, you'll come through one lap, it's completely wet. It stops raining, the wind goes, and it's drier. So it's really, data was really tough that day.
So back to the debrief. Once we got through the qualitative part, was there a discussion of what changes to make to either the car or your driving, or what happened next?
Yeah, that's when when the track actually started to go dry. That's when we really could kind of start figuring some more stuff out, and that's when we switched tires front to rear.
Yep.
They were start talking about the dynamic of the rear wheel steer and how one, I use it, but also how two, I adjust for it, because believe it or not, in a front wheel drive car, you can be too loose, especially with the rear wheel steering you into the corner.
Yeah.
And because the rear toes are adjustable, you can actually use that.
So how do you drive it different?
I've always liked to call it pitch and catch. You pitch the car into the corner, the rear wheel comes around, and you catch it with the throttle, and you're basically just aiming for the front wheels for where you want to go. The issue with that, though, is that that's always been with the way we've really done it in the U.S. Is just reduce rear grip. This is different. This is actually, you have full rear grip, and the rear wheel is actually, the rears are actually steering you into the corner. So it's a little bit different, and it takes a little bit to get used to, and I think it's going to be a lot better once I do. The harder parts are going to be when you're racing. When you really get in there, you're trail braking it hard, trying to stuff it up the inside, and the rears are kind of steering you in. There's no real way to get out of that. I mean, because the rears are actually steering you. So that's going to be something to try to get used to. So we might kind of downplay that for a bit and do maybe a change in toe or something.
Does it become, then I'll drop it after this, does it become a platform management, like you feel the car rotating and then you've got to put the weight where you want it?
Yeah, I mean, you do.
Okay.
The thing is that those slicks have so much grip that, they overcome a lot of what you can try to do. So once it starts to steer you into the corner, you're kind of just hanging on for the ride. So,
or committed.
Yes, or very committed. So
it.
it's unique, and it's just definitely something as a driver you just have to adapt to, and then learn to use to your advantage.
What happened next in the debrief? Did they start to go through the predictive of the lap or data of the car? What happened next?
I mean, we start looking at data. Once again, it was tough because every lap was different. I mean, I was picking up a second a lap, one because of the rain, but then two because of my learning the track in the car.
Yeah, and did they have a baseline from their previous experience that they were using, or was it just so A and B different that?
Well, a little bit. I mean, that's actually one thing I've requested for the race is to try to get Gordon Shedden's data from last year, because I don't have a teammate, and that, as you know, is kind of important. Yeah. Is that I could be way off through a corner. Oh, that corner's flat, and I'm still, because it's new to me. Okay, I'm half throttle, 3/4 throttle, and eventually I'll work up to it. But if I know in advance, oh yeah, it's flat, then it becomes a lot quicker.
Here comes my teammate story of debrief.
Okay.
So, and this is true. So teammate and I walked into the engineer's room, and he turns to my teammate and says, "Drop your suit, drop your pants." The guy looked at him like, "What?" He said, "Well, I'm looking at the data. I want to see if you have any balls."
Fortunately for me, my engineers have never said that to me, so
I wouldn't have
to
thought so. If I forced you to pick one thing you think the car does best, what would it be?
Everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just such
and you mean that by?
I mean that by it's just such a different car than the touring cars I've driven. 2004, 2005, the touring cars in World Challenge were great. They were very similar to that, and those cars were a lot of fun to drive. These cars are that, and that's the thing, is that for the past 3 or 4 years, I've been in more production-based cars. So jumping into this car again, I mean, that's why I said I came out of the car with a huge smile on my face, because it's just like, I now have this huge set of tools to be able to use. It's like, okay, this car does this, and now I can use that, because I've had to manipulate the car, to get the car to do. My teammate used to say circus trick the car in order to get it through the corner, and now I can actually use the car. So it's just the handling, I think, for me is the biggest thing.
Well, and I'm assuming that's going to give you more room to actually race.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're not working for the car.
Well, the thing is even as a good driver, when you are tricking the car to do something, you're really not 100% sure what you're going to get. Like, yes, the car.
Don't tell everyone that.
Okay, sorry.
Okay,
right, cut.
Yeah.
No, but
I hear you.
But you're really not. I mean, you're kind of, it's a wing and a prayer. Yeah, I'm going to throw the car in, and I know it's going to slide this much, but it could slide that much, and if it does, then I'm going to hit the guy next to me. And these cars are a lot more precise. So the thing about that is that if I hit someone in the BTCC, it's because I mean to.
And I've seen those races.
Yeah, and and I think that the feeling is mutual for those guys.
Now, correct me on this, because I really am vague. I think that British touring cars in the U.S. on some type of recap programming on Speed?
On the Speed channel.
Okay.
Usually in January was where it was last year. Hopefully now that there's an American in the series, they might try to put a little more focus on it, but we'll see.
So if we need to follow you in August, we got to find some kid to teach us how to torrent or do whatever the hell I'm supposed to do to find it?
Yeah, there are a couple ways, and
Okay,
I think if
good.
people research on the web, ITV4 in the UK is the satellite company, and they have a internet feed, a live internet broadcast, 6 hours of coverage every Sunday. So
Good.
it starts. There's a 30-minute sprint, our 30-minute sprint race, and then there's support series, our 30-minute sprint race, support series, and then our last race of the day.
Are you going to be staying in the UK through the KnockHill, Scotland, the Snetterton?
I'm going to be over there. I actually have to go to Germany to do some stuff with Audi at the Nürburgring, and then I come back. So my vacation from BTCC is to go play at the Nürburgring with the Audi TT RS VLN-spec car.
Well, life could be tougher.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use your word. You've made a point not to make this an American in the UK circus trick, but what has the media done? How has the media reacted to all this?
Unbelievable.
Really?
I didn't expect this. I mean, this for me was something I've always wanted to do. I started off racing pretty much because of the BTCC. I mean, looking at back in the super touring car days, they were just the best cars, the best racing, and I thought the best drivers.
Yeah.
And I said, this is something that I want to go do, and that's how I got into racing. So for me, this is something that I've always wanted to go to. I did not know that I was going to be the first American in almost 40 years to race in the series until I was notified after I'd signed the contract. And when the press picked it up, it just went nuts. We made our press release on Wednesday, and in between Wednesday and Friday, I had probably done 20 interviews. And there was, reporters at the test. This is a local test. I mean, this is like, if you have your crew guy there, that's probably the biggest cheering section you've got. And we had reporters, and everyone's got stopwatches, and it's just like. And then I've pretty much done an interview a day, pretty much since we made the announcement. And the funny thing is that the last guy I just did an interview with said, so how do you feel with all this attention focused on you? You gonna have a problem with that? And I went, what attention? Like, really, don't jinx this. So, it's really been nuts. The other funny thing is that they're all surprised. Why would you come to the BTCC? And you go, well, why
not?
Wouldn't I want to come? They don't understand that the way they feel about BTCC in the UK. The diehard racing fans around the world see it the same way.
Not to be controversial, do you think they think of American racers as something less than the UK experienced driver?
I think that's a general thing. I don't think it's UK. I think it's Europe, US, and I think Europe sees US as NASCAR, and that's it. And frankly, they don't think a lot of NASCAR drivers. But you put Jeff Gordon in a car, you put Kyle Busch in a car, those guys are good drivers. You put them in anything, a Formula One car, a touring car, they're going to go fast. They're going to figure out a way to go. And I think that's always the way it is. And I think part of that is because Americans have struggled over in Europe because it's a whole culture thing. And fortunately for me, I spent a lot of my time growing up in Europe. So for me, I feel very comfortable over there. So there isn't that huge shift.
Last two questions. What do you have left to do to adapt to getting this car to go quick?
A couple more sessions. Give me dry sessions. Give me an hour in the car where I can really start making some changes. Because that's the big thing is right now we're using a setup that they used last year for Gordon Shedden, and I don't know Gordon. I haven't met him yet, and I haven't, other than watching him on TV, I haven't seen him drive. So it's very difficult to know if that's the style of car that I'm really looking for. So until then, you really can't get that last tenth of a second out of the car. So give me a couple sessions. Give me Dave and I'll sit down and do some debriefs, and I think we'll come up with a fast car.
And the car has enough adjustability to adapt.
Has amazing. That was my big worry, is coming in, you just look at all the things that you can adjust, and you're going, okay, well, we're going to start where, well, the big thing is that we've got a good base. The guys last year, obviously, they won the championship in the car, so, we've got a good base, and working on that.
So, project yourself to the start of that first race, August 12th?
Yeah.
You've done the session, you've done your qualifying, you probably have a sense of where you're going to go. I'm not going to pin you down on your expectations.
Thanks.
But what is going to be going through your head and helmet on the grid, getting ready for the green?
Hopefully not my lunch.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it's fun because I'm excited. I'm not nervous. I'm excited.
Cool.
And it's, I think the ability that I have, and I think a lot of other race car drivers have it, is the ability to compartmentalize things. You throw out the media, you throw out the fans, you throw out all the people that have come up over the past few weeks and patted me on the back, and because I think if you try to keep all that with you, it just becomes overwhelming and you can't focus on the job that you have to do. So for me, it's just basically, it's going to be just like a World Challenge race. It's the red lights. When they go out, I go fast, and that's it. Do
you think first turn and then connect the dots, or do you have a vision of the entire race? I know it's unpredictable, but how do you think?
And the funny thing is that that's the way I normally see it. Is the way I normally look at it is, okay, I know the track. Here's what normally happens. Yeah, the inside lane's the fast lane, or the outside line's the fast lane because the inside line gets backed up, and then you think about 3 or 4 laps, and then you say, okay, let's see how everything settles out, and then we'll run the race. But here I don't know. It's all unknown. It's all new. I mean, yes, I know the circuit. Yeah, I can kind of see how turns 1, 2, 3, 4 might play out, but you're dealing with all new cars, a whole new set of cast of characters. So, really that's the big unknown.
2 races per weekend?
3 races per weekend.
3 races per weekend.
You have a 30-minute sprint, which is the grid set by qualifying. Another 30-minute sprint, the grid is set by the finishing order of race 1.
Right.
And then the last is another 30-minute sprint, and the finishing order there is the starting order there is the finishing order of race 2, but they have an inversion process. So between 4 and 10, they will pick a number and invert those cars. Yes, I understand. As a racer, hey, look, this is where I finish, this is where I start, let's just go.
Yeah.
But I also think that it creates great racing. And at the end of the day, we're entertainers. That's what the fans are there to see.
I understand.
They're there to see good racing, but it's also the rules of the series. And I think that you can't just have the fastest car now and say, okay, I qualify on pole, win the first 2 races, and then because I won the first 2, I get to pole the third, and then go. That's you have to be able to pass people. And I think that adds something to it.
Cool. Well, regardless of what happens, and I'm sure it's going to be good, you're going to have stories.
I will have stories.
We're going to have you back.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Good
Thanks,
luck.
Leo.
Best on you.